Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah. I think this is exciting. We're multitasking, and now they got all kinds of stuff going on with Zoom. I could probably mark up the screen and do all kinds of stuff. Hi, everybody. Welcome to your Thursday kind of abbreviated webinar. I'm joined by Fred Solomon. We're here live on Facebook, as well as with our own coaching students here live. And we're talking about some information that came out today that I think is important, and that's CPI. So, first of all, what is CPI, Fred?
Okay, so CPI is the Consumer Price Index. That's what happens to the prices of goods and services to the consumer. That came out yesterday, 9.1%, the highest in 40 years. Today, we had Producer Price Index. That's the cost of goods and services for manufacturers. That was even higher, 11.3%. So we have a lot of smart guys in our coaching group, and they follow this information very closely. I'm the same way. I wake up at 6 in the morning when this CPI numbers and the PPI numbers come out. I want to hear what the talking heads have to say about it. Yesterday was very interesting because the numbers come out, the highest in 40 years, 9.1%. The previous month was 8.6%. It's getting out of control. Everybody knows that prices are getting out of control. Now the data is supporting that information that things are getting out of control. So when we talk about it, the first thing that I do is I say, look, we know what's going to happen to real estate. Real estate is typically a hedge against inflation because when prices of real estate go up and when inflation increases, we usually see rents do the same exact thing. And that's going to happen until the economy starts losing jobs. Well, yesterday, the 10-year Treasury shoots up to 307. It's up 12 basis points when they release the data. That means interest rates are going up. 10 to 15 basis points is the equivalent of an eighth of a point. But you know what? It was actually worse than that. Today, I just checked, it went up 0.3% in one day. 0.3%. That's huge. Those are big moves. Just to compare it so people understand, Hurricane Katrina was only 0.25%, and that wiped out an entire region of people. They all lost their jobs. 9 out of 10 homes were not livable if you lived within 2 miles of the sand on the beach. So just so you know, this is big. This 0.3% is bigger than a hurricane. Okay, just to give it perspective, this information, when interest rates go up, when inventory goes up, what do you see happening to home prices? I mean, do you see what I see? Higher interest rates, higher inventory, lower affordability. It's common sense what's going to happen to prices of real estate. The Fed wants a reset. That's not even talking about what the Fed wants to do. We're just talking about the data. But on top of all that, the Fed wants a reset. And what does that mean? They want to reset the home prices. Oh, that's a popular word, reset. Let's just hit the reset button.
Well, that's what they constantly talk about, right? The Great Reset.
Right. So what does reset mean? Like, when are they going to reset it to? Are they going to, I've been referring to this Back to the Future machine. Are they going to get in that car and go to 2019 and say, here's where prices of real estate are going to come back down to? I don't know. But whatever it is, it's what they want to do. So all of their government policies, what's going to cause the big reset? Okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about things that are going to cause prices to drop. I'll tell you what's going to cause prices to drop. Higher interest rates, that's for sure. So they're not going to be really concerned about where these interest rates are going. And it was very evident when they stopped buying treasuries the fourth quarter of 2021. They just said, oh, we're not buying treasuries anymore. We're artificially going to not keep these rates low anymore. We're just going to let the rates go where they go. Lee said 7%. Well, guess what? Lee's pretty darn close, because I'm like, 1%, 1.5%. I could see that. I was way off. It was 3% in 3 months. Big numbers. 3% on $1 million loan, that's $30,000 a year. Divide $30,000 a year by 12 months, that's $2,500 a month higher monthly payment just on $1 million loan. So just, putting it into perspective, it's just a situation where all these higher inventory, higher rates, and the Fed reset. What are you going to do with your house if you were thinking about selling it? Would you want to sell it now or or after the prices of real estate come down? Now, if you have rental property and it's paid off and you're collecting rent on it, you don't really care if the prices of real estate go up or down because you're just collecting rent. I get it. You don't have to sell. I have a property in Hawaii. I don't care what the heck happens with real estate prices. I'm not selling.
Are you going to Hawaii if it all goes sideways, Fred? Is that the fallback? It's kind of my attitude about going to Florida. If it all goes sideways, I'm just going to Florida and living quietly.
Yeah.
With the mosquitoes and the bugs. They have those.
Well, it's, if you're thinking about selling, if you're in default, if you have triggers in your life, kids going away to college, whatever your triggers are, lost your job, these are all reasons why people sell, have more children, whatever the case may be. Whatever your triggers are or whatever your reasons are for selling, sometimes it really doesn't even matter what's going on in the marketplace because they're triggers,
Right.
You can't change the timing on those triggers. But if you had a trigger happen in your life where you needed to sell, and right now is that when that trigger is happening, do it sooner rather than later. Or if you're just a person that says, I want to cash out, I'm sick of this, I'm going to cash out and I'm going to go rent somewhere. All right, I get it. Now's a good time to sell. Just go check the rents before you decide to do all this, because rents are going up, and until the economy starts losing jobs, rents are only going to continue to go up. So you got to calculate that into your decision-making process and say, all right, well, if rents go up and I rent for something for 2 years and I'm paying $3,000, $4,000 a month, what do I expect prices of real estate to come down, and does it make sense to do that? So it's all a numbers problem. It's all something that we talk, and these are the kind of conversations that I have with my clients. I really get into the nuts and bolts with them. And then a lot of them just say, you know what, Fred, I'm just going to stay put. I'm happy where I'm at.
And I just had this discussion with one of the advocates, and I think that really falls back to now we have the internet and now we have history. In 2007, you didn't have history. People didn't know about the other cycle turns, right? They were mostly swept under the radar. And truthfully, the attention span of the American public is about 6 weeks tops. I'm not even sure anybody remembers Will Smith slapping, at the Oscars anymore. Like, that's in the past. It happened, and now they've forgotten it and they've moved on to the next thing. So I think it's important to note that what's unique about this period of time, certainly the amount of media and the amount of content and the amount of private people. There are a bunch of people who I watch who just do basically what I do with Fight Net Radio: read the news, give a commentary, and have a following. And that's news. I know you guys don't get it. The thing I was trying to impart about Red the most is you're the news. And it doesn't matter if there's 25 or 2,500 or 2.5 million people watching you, you're creating content that people will follow. And that becomes news. Wow, Sally actually used the word bips.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm back in a bank.
basis points.
I know. I only see that in a bank, like, and they'd say bips. Do you guys say bips? They say it in the bank. They call it bips, which there's no I, but it would be bupus, bupus, I think. Bupus, bupus. It's not bips. There's no I. But yeah, in the bank, that would be the basis point discussion is so huge in a bank. I kind of like her perspective of by raising it a full point and then bringing it back down around the election, maybe lowering the interest rates. Here's my problem, Sally. And we've talked about this, and you'll be talking about this later on when we shoot your video. People seem to know about the recession. Like they seem to understand. They don't understand CPI. They don't understand GDP. They don't understand unemployment. Like they don't understand any of that stuff. But the word recession, they seem to have some kind of finger on, and that there's some kind of impact to it. And when you're talking about pushing someone, and I mean that sincerely, not in a bad way, I think the information you provide is valuable, right? When you go to the front door and somebody says, I got this taken care of, there's nothing more frustrating to me over the past, 12, 13, 14 years of this particular monster marketing program of people going, well, they didn't want a list, so I just walked away. Nobody wants to sell their house ever who's missed a payment. I have never met, and I take that back. I met one, and literally he was ready on the day we walked up to the front door, but I don't think he started that way. It was just good timing. But the rest of the time, everybody wants to keep their house. Everybody who's missed a payment wants to keep their house. They'll keep it by ignoring the problem. They'll keep it by hiring a lawyer. They'll keep it by promising, I've got it worked out. I've talked to the bank. I've got a loan mod, which isn't real right now. I've got a forbearance agreement. My kid's gonna, wow, how many times have we heard this one? My kid's gonna buy it. Yeah, that always works out historically. So these are all very real things when you go to the front door. Like all I can do as a marketing guy is put you in a position to have a conversation. It's funny because I was online this morning on Facebook and somebody was writing, how do I get leads? I've been beating myself over the head and not getting anywhere. And I was starting to type in and give a link to this webinar and do the whole routine. And my attitude was, do I really want to open myself up to a group of people that are already talking about knocking on doors and cold calling and you need to do more work? I don't know. I know that I'm going to be working with probably standardized agents that aren't as passionate as all of you in this group, or even the people that follow me on social media. And I completely understand that. My job is to put them in a position where they can have a conversation and sell houses. I fundamentally believe this. The best thing you can do for a homeowner who has missed at least 6 payments is sell their damn house. I know they don't like it. I know they won't like it. I know they're not going to call you till the last minute. But the reality is 8 out of 10 people you're going to meet are going to transfer title. Or you can go tag and start looking at, for sale signs. There's nothing more frustrating than to me, Fred. And I put up a lot of tags on a lot of properties. When I drive up to a house that already got like a sign for sale on it, it just takes the air out of my chest.
Yeah. Well, someone talked some sense into them. There was a really good question here, and a lot of people need to know the answer to this. And the question was, why are loan mods not a thing right now?
I almost want to turn on Stephen Thompson actually interviewed me on this topic and made it into a video for himself. And by the way, feel free, if you're in the Red program, interview me anytime and get whatever answers you want.
Yeah.
Why, Fred, would a bank not want to do a loan mod in the current environment?
Well, that's a great question for you, since you were the former chief loss mitigator at IndyMac Bank and the Home Equity Line of Credit Division. So the quick
You mean
answer,
the guy who might have created all the protocols to short sales that made literally 1.5 million real estate agents crazy? That guy?
that guy.
The guy who invented the word mitigator on a whim. Yeah, I did all that stuff. So let me turn on my camera for this. So let me explain. Hi, my name's Lee Honish. I am the former head loss mitigator for IndyMac Bank's HELOC division, and I'm not wired like the rest of you. I'm going to explain to you why loan modifications and the infamous FHFA 40-year loan modification are not a thing. Let's start with a traditional loan modification. There are two types, a trial and a regular. The trial is crap and you're still actively in foreclosure, so you don't want that one. That means you're just paying the bank for free. Congratulations, homeowner. The second is what we call a full recast. That is where the terms are rewritten, you are redocumenting, you are showing proof that you are able to provide payments, and let's just say whatever criteria in prior to the pandemic was actually a thing. Now, why is it not a thing right now? There was something that remarkably happened during the pandemic that I don't think anybody could have foresaw, Fred, which is the infamous 3% interest rate, which created a gold rush on housing, which created unbelievable equity in houses. So here's the question. You lend somebody a lot of money based on the value of their property. They owe you fees, they owe you interest, they owe you time, they owe you undercarriage spray coating like you're buying a new car, whatever craziness you can think of. Now, in the past, you would lose money on people who are in default or break even at best, and therefore it was better to negotiate and get what you could today instead of wait for tomorrow, because you never know what's going to happen. In the current climate, there is so much freaking equity that I can get my attorney's fees covered. I can get all of my past fees covered. I can get my interest covered. I can get all my past due payments covered and whatever principal's laying out there. That means a 100% paid off loan. Now, here's the punchline to that whole thing. When I foreclose, you don't get a payoff, even though they took 100% of the equity and all the money out of there to pay themselves. You don't get a lovely paid off loan. No, you get the word foreclosure, which means you're not going to rent or buy anything for a few years. In fact, it'll probably affect your employment. It will affect your credit, certainly if they ever turn credit back on or reset it. Who knows what they're doing, Fred? I've given up on the FICO thing. Nobody else wants to talk about it but me for some reason. Like, that is the most blown off topic in the United States. So if there's that much equity where everything I do in loss mitigation gets me 100% payback, why would I give you a loan modification? People who don't pay, don't pay. Everybody in the group knows that. Everybody in this group knows it. Now, all of you on social media know it as well, which takes us to the rumors of the world famous FHFA 40-year loan mod. This thing was in the hopper right around the start of the pandemic. So we've talked about this before. How is Wells, Chase, and B of A? Well, and by the way, if you don't know this, Chase lost almost $1 billion this morning in quarterly earnings, Fred, as I recall. I mean, give or take, it was in the 500 or 600 million range. I'll just round up for the sake of discussion. But if you're wondering, Chase will be laying off people in the next quarter. They lost close to $1 billion. And that was on their quarterly earnings. And by the way, everybody else is holding back on their second quarter numbers because they're terrified of what their stockholders are going to do.
Tell you what they're going to do.
They're going to lay off people, Fred. That's what you do. That's what you do. If I lost $1 billion, I would lay off people. That's what I'd do. I'd cut down my overhead and I'd hunker down from my recession. But I digress, which is the FHFA loan, which was discussed probably, I want to say April of 2020. I want to say it. It's somewhere in there, right after the start of the pandemic. There was this circulating rumor, and then it became very well known that Wells, Chase, and B of A were not really into lending directly unless you had tier one. So they started lending short-term loans to Quicken Loans, or what's the one that just laid off a bunch of people?
Loan Depot.
Loan Depot, right. Like these are second tier, what we call, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, warehouse type companies, right? It's not technically their money, but it is their money. Like they're insuring it, but it's more like a warehouse line. So they come in, they qualify based on their terms. They get the money from Wells, Chase, or B of A. That funds the loan. Then Loan Depot or Quicken Loans sells it to, who are they selling all their loans to, Fred?
Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and FHA.
Correct. So those crazy people decided, well, we know they're going to default, so we're going to create a 40-year loan mod that everybody can jump into. Well, I would have bought into this, and I would have bought into this being a real thing. And by the way, that pays back Wells, Chase, and B of A. And that's been the cycle of life for the last 2 or 3 years. And that's how our market's been operating. Now, all these people are now being serviced by Freddie, Fannie, FHA. Like, it's completely out of control. The government is the support system in this whole system. So they were talking about it. And then the president decided to release his housing report. And I think it was Don Betts or somebody else who brought it up. They go, there's nothing in here about homeowners. And I said, right. Do you see anything about a 40-year loan mod? Do you see anything about trying to find financing for people who've missed payments? Do you see anything other than creating affordable housing with no real solution on affordable housing? It's always looking at the trend, or as I like to say, what's missing from the actual report? What are people actually leaving out? And in the federal government's report that just came out a couple of months ago, it was very clear that they're not in the business of keeping people in their houses. They're in the business of creating housing. And I will say this to everybody who can listen to me. There is no federal fix. There is no help. There is no loan mod. You are going to be foreclosed upon when your number comes up. They want to create housing. They want to lower the prices. The Fed's made it abundantly clear, Fred, and correct me if I'm wrong. The Fed has made it very clear they want to lower prices.
Well, for people who are watching on social media, they may not know who Lee is. So obviously we're talking to your coaching group right now, but for others that may be watching this, understand that Lee used to work in the loss mitigation department. He became the head of the loss mitigation department in the home equity line of credit division. So if he's telling you this, just understand this is not just someone telling this to you. This is someone who has worked behind the desk and gets paid monthly bonuses for bringing money into the bank for people that are in default.
I would actually say my job was always knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. What's going to happen tomorrow? How many are we going to close? What can you do? Like, what can you put back on our books? And that has a lot to do with the shape of the economy and the direction it goes and being able to project value. And right now, as it stands, this is a house of cards. Do I think it can all? I think there are markets that can completely implode before the end of the year. And I think it will have dramatic effect. my greatest fear is the level of evictions before the end of the year. I think 2 million evictions, especially with having gone through my own personal bout of COVID and being hospitalized from it. Um, it's a very real thing. It is a very much a real health hazard. And you are really displacing millions of people in the middle of summer, which is normally the hot season for real estate. Like we should keep appreciating. Like there should be no reason not to. But that's not the case. And that's not what's going to happen here. And I think that's what's the next big number? What's the next big benchmark in your mind, Fred, for next week to watch?
Oh, well, they got the Fed chair meeting on the 26th and the 27th. So that's, I think it's, let me just double check that real quick when the date of that is. But I'm pretty sure it was July 26th and 27th. And that's when they're going to probably raise the short-term interest rates another point. There's a couple people, Brendan thinks it could be 1.25, 1.5.
1.25 strong. Who said 1.5? Who voted 1.5? These are people after my own heart. Like I like the whole go big. It's Brendan. Yeah. 1.25 to 1.5. That's, I think like one would be devastating. 1.25 would be crushing to real estate. If they made it to 1.5, Fred, at the next meeting, it would halt. Like I don't even know what that would look like. I don't know what that would do.
Well,
it's such a big number.
It's really interesting how they have the economic data set up this month, because 26th and 27th is the Fed meeting. On the 28th, they're going to release the actual numbers for GDP. They already have numbers released. There was an article that was negative 2.1%. Then I think Steve Thompson sent me a message this morning, and he said, no, it's not negative 2.1. Now it's negative 1.2. They're trying to smooth it over. But whatever it is, we're going to find out for sure on July 28th. So the 26th and the 27th is the Fed meeting. Then on the 28th, and they announce on the second day, though, they will announce how much they're going to raise in short-term interest rates. So on the 27th, let's say they raise it a point. I'm just throwing the number out there, 1% higher. Then on the 28th, they're going to release, we're in a recession, right?
Yep.
That's what I'm.
By the way, this is a replay of what 3 weeks ago, where they raise the interest rates. That like they just keep back to backing these things, and they wonder why the stock market is so volatile.
No, this is all done on purpose.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah, I mean, these people aren't dumb. They know what they're doing. They're gonna, scare you, and then they're gonna show you, oh, don't worry, we're in a recession, so rates aren't gonna go too high, but then we're gonna have some more crazy, GDP numbers the next quarter, and it's gonna only get uglier with this DEF fluid and stuff for the diesel trucks and all that.
Oh yeah, lovely supply chain shortages and everything else. But to bring this all back for real estate agents who might be watching this, what does it mean to you? You have to fundamentally understand you are at the top of the market, excluding a couple of very special locations. Most markets, and I talk to agents in every market and shoot video every week with agents in those markets. The number of offers has slowed down. Everybody's plateauing out. Everybody's reaching, the top of the hill or going on the other side. I just talked to Eric Borgia, right? He goes, yeah, they've already missed the top of the market by a couple of months. Like it's already happened. It's already happened in the Seattle area. Like they're on the other side now. And I could say that it's going to be that way in Boise. I guarantee it's that way in Phoenix right now. It's that way in a lot of places. Now, you might not see it that way because you're still going with they're just pricing correctly, Fred. They're pricing correctly.
Well, whatever it is, however you want to justify it, I think your point is well taken, is that summarizing everything that we just said. We are at the top of the market. And if you're thinking about selling, when should you sell? Before or after the prices come down? When you are thinking about buying, and there is a possibility that we're going to deal with 11.3% inflation on the producer price index and 9.1% inflation on the consumer price index, that is going to force interest rates higher. What was interesting yesterday was that the data basically said, oh, you know what? We're more worried about a recession than we are about an inflationary economy. What it is it's stagflation. It's Jimmy Carter all over again. And I don't know if people, this was kind of funny to me. I'm looking at Joe Biden's picture yesterday, and I'm like, God, he even kind of looks like Jimmy Carter. And I'm like, this is 1980s all over again. And I mean, I know everybody knows that already, but it's like, you know, they were both Democrats. They kind of look like each other. Maybe I'm weird for saying that, but it's going to be a situation where if we are in a recession, is inflation pressures going to cause long-term interest rates, not short-term interest rates, long-term interest rates, which are what mortgages are based on, is that going to cause long-term interest rates to go up, or is the recession going to keep the long-term interest rates down? My personal feeling is that it could go either way, and I hope that the rates stay down. Lee doesn't seem to think so, and I'm not.
Nope.
I'm not against his school of thought. So, you know, got to watch this information. But if you're a buyer and there's a possibility that rates are going to go up, my attitude, what I say to my clients word for word is, hey, now's the time to buy, because if you're not paying cash for the property and you're financing it, when should you finance it? Before or after the rates go up? And even if the rates do come down after you buy it, just know that we can refinance you to the lower rate and it won't cost you anything, as long as you have enough equity in your property and that the prices haven't dropped. So that's the magic big question mark. But if you do have enough equity and we can refinance you, then, you know, we do zero cost loans and we can get you the lower rate. And there's going to be no cost. So that way you can take advantage of the lower rates if they happen to come down. But if they go up, you're locked in. You don't have to worry about it because you got a 30-year fixed. So that's how I talk to my clients, and they seem to like that. And it works well because I've been saying the same thing for many, many years. And the good thing is, if it's true, you don't have to, you know, massage the information. It's true. It's what I've done.
By the way, Google, let me do this on camera. By the way, Google Home Advocates, join our program, get guaranteed face-to-face. We look forward to seeing you here live, where you can actually ask real questions, but just type in Home Advocates. Simple as that. Then click on coaching. Simple as that. Look forward to having you.